Hello, welcome back to Freedom Matters. I'm your host, Mark McIntire. The best way to describe what we do here on the show is we invite guests who are global influencers on freedom, the principles and the values thereof. And now the best way for me to introduce today's guest is to tell you a little story. Three guys walk into a downtown Washington, D.C. coffee shop. An ordained Baptist pastor, a black conservative Republican candidate for the D.C. City Council, and a firebrand community organizer dedicated to getting down-ballot candidates elected to local office. So what's the joke? No joke. It's all the same guy. Welcome to the show, Ralph J. Chittams, Sr. Good to see you, Ralph.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a blessing to be on.
Well, did you like the opening? I worked on it all week.
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic.
First of all, we have to thank our mutual friend Alex Madagian, who worked on your campaign for the D.C. City Council last year. By the way, wonderful job you did on that campaign. Absolutely first rate. The very fact that you ran as a conservative Republican in the district. I spent 6 years in Washington, D.C., so I know what you were up against. It was pretty formidable.
Oh, yeah. Well, going back to Alex, yes, Alex did a fantastic job. Alex was our volunteer coordinator, and he went above and beyond the call of duty. But you're right. The race in Washington, D.C., I spent as much time fighting people in my own party as I did fighting Democrats.
Well, that's when we know you've got something really valuable, when you're fighting your own people.
Absolutely.
Then you're really a leader. Just to give you some background, we have a lot of things in common. Reverend Chittams is a graduate of Howard University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science. I was a volunteer at the Newman Center at Howard University when I was in Washington, D.C. as a seminarian at the Catholic University. So I spent many days, many hours working with faculty and with students at the Newman Center. So I know the neighborhood very well. He also picked up 2 master's degrees, one of which is a Master of Arts in Biblical Studies, and the other is a Master of Divinity in theology. Mr. Chittams was also a candidate, as we've been discussing, for the office of at-large member of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. City Council. He ran a principled conservative campaign in a deep blue District of Columbia. If you've been there, folks, you know what I mean. It's all run by the Democrats. Ralph also has served 2 terms as the senior vice chairman of the District of Columbia Republican Party. I'm going to get into a few other things, but you're a man to be reckoned with, Ralph. I remember Alex telling me about how the campaign was going and how you had to really fight with your own people on the inside of the Republican Party to get. Where do you get the stamina and the resolve and the courage to put yourself out there when it seems like a lost cause?
Well, the campaign that I got into at the last minute, and one reason I got into it is when Republicans run for office in Washington, D.C., typically they don't run as Republicans. Typically they run as Democrat lights. And so you will never see the color red on any campaign material. You'll never see an elephant. And they'd be loath to put the word Republican anywhere on anything at any time. Well, the race that I ran, there was no question who I was or what I was. I ran as a Republican, a proud Republican, a black conservative living in Ward 7 east of the Anacostia River, and I ran because people needed to hear a different voice. They needed to hear different solutions than they had been hearing for the same problems for the past 20 years. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
Yep.
Well, if that's the definition of insanity, the electorate in Washington, D.C. is all insane because they keep electing the same people or the same types of people over and over and over again. Now, it's like they're just shifting the chairs on the deck of the Titanic.
That's right. Now I want to roll the videotape of your life back, because Alex, Alex and you did a video interview for his his YouTube channel, and you mentioned something that really struck me. You said that your life really changed with the birth, I think, of your twin daughters. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on that? How that changed you spiritually and politically, and in terms of your motivation?
Well, initially, when it came time for me to register to vote, I registered as a Democrat because, what else am I supposed to do?
Yeah, right.
And, about 10 years later, I woke up, and I like to say I realized that the Democrat Party had left me, pun fully intended, and all I did was file the divorce papers. well,
I love that one.
A few years after that...
did you get an alimony settlement, though? Did you get an alimony settlement? No?
Oh, no. When you leave the Democrat Party, they don't give you anything but a swift kick in the pants. And a few years after that, my daughters were born, and just to say, life just got very, very real. Mm-hmm. And it got to a point where it's either you believe what you say you believe, or you're a hypocrite to yourself. Mm-hmm.
How much did your own principles and values about human freedom influence the direction that you took spiritually and politically?
Well, spiritually, there's the Bible verse that says, train up a child on the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Well, that doesn't mean that you're not going to take a vacation from time to time. And I took my vacation from those moral and spiritual principles, as most of us do.
Yes.
But it gets to a point in your life when you realize either you believe what you say or you don't. Mm-hmm. And either you're going to live according to the principles that you say that you believe or you won't. Mm-hmm. And then it comes down to, are you going to be truthful to yourself, or are you going to be a hypocrite to yourself? Mm-hmm. One of the biggest issues I had to deal with personally was the death penalty. Mm-hmm. I used to be a big pro-death penalty person. I mean, I used to say, you give me $1 and I'll go across the country and flip the switch on everybody on death row. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, when I started taking life as a serious issue, God gives life. The gift giver is the only one who should be allowed to take life. Mm-hmm. And I know I run afoul of a lot of my brothers and sisters in the conservative movement on this issue. Mm-hmm. But that really was one of the driving forces for me. Was how can I say that life is precious at the front end, understanding that salvation and life both come from God, and then how can I, as a human being, decide that this person is so vile that now they should be killed, when God says anyone can come to me at any time, regardless of what he or she may have done, mm-hmm. including a thief on the cross. Mm-hmm. So really, the life issue is really what propelled me to make a decision, mm-hmm. one way or another. Mm-hmm.
So if I'm reading you correctly, the freedom to live, the freedom that each of us has to be alive and to pursue a life, was what you were principally motivated by, both spiritually and politically.
That was a very, absolutely. That was a very strong motivator. Mm-hmm. We believe. I believe. I'm sure you do the same thing. That the rights that we have do not come from the government.
Right.
Even our founding fathers understood that when they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created, that they are endowed by God mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. with certain inalienable rights. And it's not the role of the government to give you rights. It's the role of the government to ensure that the rights that God has bestowed upon you are not infringed upon.
Well, you are consistent, and you are in sync with the founding fathers, who said the very same thing in the Declaration of Independence and also in the Constitution of the United States. So we have that in common. But it's in your experience, it's pretty rare for a Washington D.C. inner city resident who's always voted Democrat. They're almost stamped with the Democrat logo when they're born, when they pop out of the womb. It must be very difficult for you to deal with a group of people who are very used to looking at government as the way to solve all of their problems.
Oh, it is very difficult because, not just, urban America, but there are segments of America from sea to shining sea that have been trained that the government gives you your rights, the government gives you your food, the government gives you your shelter, the government is your mother, your father, your doctor, your God, your lawyer. And when you understand liberty, you understand no, that is not the government's job. You have a responsibility, to take care of certain things for yourself and by yourself. And it's not the government's role to micromanage your existence and to create some sort of a fictitious playing field where everyone is guaranteed the same end result. Now, we should all have the same opportunity, but no one can guarantee the same end result, or else everyone would get a gold medal at the Olympics.
Now, your campaign, which was unsuccessful, but you made a good showing. You made a better showing than any other Republican has ever made in that particular race. What lessons have you drawn away from that campaign for the at-large seat on the District of Columbia City Council?
The lesson I learned is Republicans need to get into races even if the odds of winning are slim to none. And the reason it's important for us to get into these races is by the time the campaign season was over and the votes were counted, every candidate who was running for that seat, every candidate that was running against me, started to sound like me. I pulled the entire conversation to the right.
Tell us about that.
Tell
us about what topics you were able to bend their mind to your way of thinking. What topics are we talking about?
Anything as simple as policing. There's this pervasive idea that, policing is bad, that cops are bad. And I'm saying no. When you have a problem, it doesn't matter what you think of the police. You're going to pick up the phone and you're going to dial 911. And I propose strict penalties for anyone using an illegal gun in the commission of a crime in the District of Columbia. Mandatory minimums. And when I first said it, none of the other candidates would co-sign and agree to it. But by the time the election was over, all of a sudden the other people are now talking about stiffer sentences for people who use illegal guns in the commission of crimes. If I had not been on that platform, that never would have happened. And that's why it's important for Republicans to run in urban centers, to run for mayor, to run for council member, to run for alderman, to run for sheriff, to run for recorder of deeds. Heck, run for dog catcher.
We have
to run to the message.
What you're saying, Ralph, is this is a national problem. The GOP, especially the RNC, Republican National Committee, they don't give a lot of support to what we call down ballot offices and down ballot campaigns, like for city council or for the school board or for the board of trustees of a city college or water board or sewer board or, as you said, dog catcher. They seem to relegate their resources, and they dole out their money and their vast phone banking resources of personnel to congressional and senatorial races, gubernatorial races, maybe some supervisorial races out here in California. But we're having the same problem out here that you just spoke about, and that is that the GOP has forgotten to pay attention to the school board, to the city council, the dog catcher, the library, local judgeships, some of our local, the sheriff here in Santa Barbara has said that he will never cooperate with ICE. He'll never cooperate with ICE on arresting illegal aliens. Never. Now, that's an elected office.
No.
And somebody should be running
Absolutely.
But these people, they get elected year after year after year, and there's no Republican, never mind conservative, there's just no Republican running at all. It's just like a one-party state and a one-party program.
Right.
But I understand.
And it's not that the RNC does.
Go ahead.
It's not that the RNC gives little support. The RNC gives no support whatsoever. Period. End of discussion. How does every incumbent judge in Houston, Texas, lose his reelection bid? Every Republican judge in Houston, Texas, Houston, lost to a town. How does that happen?
Yep. They don't
It
have the
happens
support.
because
Yeah.
people aren't dedicated to those races, and honestly, a lot of candidates who run, they want to run in the sexy races. They want to run for Congress. They want to show up and they want to,
That's
be
right.
the freshman, in the House of Representatives.
Yep.
But when the truth is told, your city council member and your alderman has a greater impact on your daily life
Yep.
than any president, senator, or U.S. congressman.
And your school
So
board.
if you want to change people's lives,
your school board
Yes,
and your
right.
board of trustees for your colleges, the government colleges. These are the people that are shaping our students into cultural Marxism. They're dedicated to
Absolutely.
cultural Marxists. And the Republicans would rather go after, I got to tell you a funny story. Out here in the 24th Congressional District, I was a campaign manager in 2014 for Christopher Mitchum, the son of the late actor Robert Mitchum. And a staunch Republican, a conservative, the RNC would not give him a single dime, not a dime, and yet he was able on his own to come within 3.7% of election to defeat Lois Capps, a long-time serving liberal progressive here in Santa Barbara. And they sent money to candidates that had no chance whatsoever, none. But because they were party affiliated, they kowtowed to the RNC, to the high command in the Republican Party, then they got the money. But you're right. Here nationally, we have this phenomenon where, as you put it, Ralph, the GOP only seems to be interested in the sexy races: governor, senator, and Congress. You're out to change that with your organization called urbanred.org, correct?
yes.
Tell us about that.
UrbanRed.org was formed in the aftermath of the 16 election.
Mm-hmm.
And it was formed because a number of us who were running, I'm sorry, I ran in 18.
Yeah.
After the 18 election, 2018 midterm elections.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a debrief with a number of my friends who ran for office across the country in down ballot races in urban centers. And we all had the same experience. There was no support from the RNC. There was no support from the state party. Mm-hmm. There was very little to no support from the local party. And so we said, okay, if no one's going to do it, then let's do it ourselves. So we formed Urban Red. And so for this election cycle for 2020, Urban Red is looking to find 20 down-ballot candidates across the country, conservative candidates, running for office no higher than mayor, so mayor below. And our goal is to step into those 25 races and raise enough money to be an independent expenditure committee to help those down-ballot candidates win, or at least make a serious crack in the ice in those urban communities. Now, the truth is, most people don't win their first election. Most don't. Mm-hmm. But if no one runs the first election to crack the ice, you will never have a chance to win the second or the third race because the ice has never been weakened.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we have no expectation of winning 25 races, off the break.
Yeah.
It would be great if we won 5.
Right.
But the impact that we're going to have nationwide is going to be people are going to hear, some for the first time, conservative ideas, conservative principles, and conservative values coming from people who look like them. Who were raised in their community, who get their hair cut in the community, who shop in the community, who are active in the community. Not some carpetbagger coming in 6 months before election and asking for votes, but people who have been in these communities for years, fighting side by side with people on local issues. And Urban Red, if we pull together the funding to pull this off, it is going to be a sea change in American politics, because you are going to see people exiting the Democrat Party because there will be a viable alternative. And the Blexit movement is going to be fantastic. The Lexit movement, fantastic. Jexodus, all of these groups are waking up to the fact that the Democrat Party is not operating in their best interest. This whole concept of intersectionality means that one group is going to get more attention than the other group, and if you're not in the superior group, then your needs and your demands are going to be pushed to the back of the bus. Now, all you have to do is look at the Democrat Party, and you can see whose wants, needs, and demands are given priority, and the other groups' demands are given short shrift and zero attention.
Now, let me ask you: is urbanred.org, is this going to be a PAC, a political action committee that disperses funds, like Charlton Heston had the Arena PAC? I was part of that operation, and they raised several million dollars, but mostly for senatorial and congressional. You're going after a much harder target to raise money for. How do you intend to do that? I got to admire you. This is not an easy thing. You're biting off a lot here to chew, because people are very willing to give to the top of the ballot, the governor, the Congress people, even the supervisors. But mayor, city council, board of trustees, school board, water board, sewer board. People are. How are you going to raise that type of money?
Well, Urban Red is really a group of companies. There's a PAC, there's a C4, and there's also an LLC.
Ah, good.
So the way the people are going to wake up when they become educated. And one thing that's really great, and it's kind of funny that I'm going to say one thing that's really great, is that we have this the LGBT transgender movement now on steroids. And a lot of people are looking at it as a bad thing, but I see this as a good thing, because it's going to make people have to choose.
Yep.
Do you want men masquerading as women, competing in sports events, and taking scholarships and medals and endorsements away from biological women? Do you want your school system to force your children to recite the Islamic conversion prayer in schools under the false pretense that you're teaching history, but you can't teach historical facts from the Bible? So people are going to have to realize that these decisions don't come from Washington, D.C. Those are decisions that you can make in your local community by showing up at your school board meeting and not living until the police take you out in handcuffs. So a part of this is also educating people, because think about it, civics has not been taught in our public school systems. We are now on our third generation of people who have never been taught civics. So I don't blame the 18 to 22-year-olds for not knowing. How are they supposed to know when their parents don't know? And so we have been systematically miseducated on purpose by the left, so that they could present anything to us. And if we don't have a knowledge of the Founding Fathers, of the Constitution, of the Declaration of Independence, God forbid you bring up the Federalist Papers, people don't even know what the heck you're talking about. You can feed them anything and they will eat it.
Well, this seems to be a national problem. We're experiencing it here in Santa Barbara. Alex may have told you about the problem we're having with Santa Barbara City College. Also, all of the public, I don't call them public schools anymore. I got this from Betsy DeVos. We call them government schools now, because calling them public schools sort of makes them legitimate in an illegitimate way. We now call them government schools, because that's exactly what they are. And
they're really indoctrination centers.
Well, yeah, so we're experiencing the indoctrination here. The entire faculty at Santa Barbara City College has signed up for diversity training and something called unconscious bias training. And they've hired an outside Marxist organization called Just Community Central Coast, paid them $250,000 $250,000 to indoctrinate their kids to hate America, to hate the Constitution of the United States, to hate white people, to hate religious people, and especially to hate anything with a penis. Anything with a penis. It's
unless it self-identifies as a woman, then you can love it.
Good point. I forgot about that. Rob. Yeah. Okay. So if you have a penis but you think you're a woman, then you're okay. You're all right.
You're okay.
You're all right. You're fine. So we are talking about the same thing. We're singing from the same choir book here. That is that the crisis really is in education. So how does urbanred.org going to address the rich education necessities and needs that we need to restore civics, to restore history, to restore the Constitution in the minds of our young people? How are you going to do that?
Well, one thing we do is we work with the candidates and with the C4 through education to go into different areas and just host an event and then have the candidates learn that the race that you're running, you need to talk about these issues. These are the type of issues that will resonate with people who understand that their school system is miseducating and undereducating their children. Like here in Washington, we have one of the most robust charter school systems in the country. And I generally support charter schools. My 4 children went through charter schools.
Really?
But you also need to understand that there comes a point where not all charter schools are as good as they should be, and some are, in fact, even worse than public schools. And so you can't just put all your eggs in the charter school basket as though this is going to solve all the problems. No, you have to hold people accountable at all levels of government, school boards, state school boards, the city councils, and speak the bread and butter issues, because that's what really is going to swing 2020. 2020 is going to be an issue about bread and butter issues. How is your pocket? What has the president done to the economy? What is the unemployment rate in your city? Is that attributable to him? And if it's not, why not? What have the local politicians done to either make the situation better or to exacerbate the situation? Candidates running in local office have to get down, as we say, to the nitty-gritty and deal with those bread and butter issues that hit people in the pocket. And that's how you're going to change hearts and minds.
Now, is Shaw Junior High still open in Washington, D.C.? Shaw Junior High?
I think they closed that for renovations.
Well, it's probably a good thing, because when I was in Washington, D.C. as a seminarian, we used to volunteer every Wednesday and every Friday. We would volunteer, a bunch of seminarians. We'd go down there, and across the street there was a place called Fides, F-I-D-E-S, which means loyalty or faith, Fides House. And when we entered the neighborhood, of course we were all white, right? When we entered the neighborhood, because we were wearing a Roman collar, nobody bothered us, nobody messed with us, because we were seen as religious individuals, people of the spirit, not people of materiality. When we met with those high school kids, junior high school kids, who, by the way, had to be escorted to the bathrooms by armed guards, that's how bad Shaw Junior High was. Stabbings, beatings, rape was commonplace in Shaw Junior High. But when those students came across the street and we were able to work with them, we were able to explain things like the Constitution of the United States and what individual freedom and individual responsibility entail. How are you going to get to the parents and the children in order to make urbanred.org a successful program?
Well, getting to the parents is probably an easier task than getting to the children, because getting to the children is going to require getting into the public school systems, which means you're going to have to get past the gatekeepers. And when you come in talking liberty, they're going to pretty much close the door in your face. But what I tell people is, those of us who have this worldview, we cannot be afraid to speak to people regardless of where we are or what setting we may find ourselves in. We are all agents of change. And, when you're in, the the laundromat, or if you're in the barbershop, if you're somewhere, do not be afraid to engage people in conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, one of the best stories that I like to tell about the election, in my election in 18, is, I've been a Republican in Washington, D.C. now since 1988.
Wow.
I've been going to the same barber for probably 15 years.
Uh-huh.
So he knows I'm a Republican. He knows I was a party official.
Yeah.
He knows I'm a reverend. He knows everything about me. And so I would show up at the barbershop, and he couldn't wait for me to show up because he'd want to start a conversation about politics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there are going to be other guys in the barbershop, and the only one in there who was a conservative Republican was me. And so now all these other guys are hearing this conversation that I'm having with the barber, with my guy, and they're jumping in the conversation. And one day we got on the subject of life and abortion. And I brought up Hillary Clinton's position that a baby has absolutely zero rights until some miraculous transformation happens to that baby when it passes through the birth canal. Mm-hmm. And 5 minutes on one side, you can kill it. And 5 minutes on the other side, you can't kill it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm here in the barbershop, and I say that, and the guy's like, man, stop lying. I'm like, okay, look, I don't want you to believe me. Go look it up for yourself. Your girl, Hillary Clinton, has said that you can kill a baby in the womb 5 minutes before it's delivered. And they all went and they checked. And this is the conversation I had on a number of occasions in the barbershop. Mm-hmm. And now, every gentleman that I had a conversation with, every last one of them, to a man, came back and said one of two things. First was, okay, you've convinced me. I'm going to vote for your boy.
No kidding.
They were going to vote for Donald Trump.
Really?
The other guy said, the other men who couldn't go that far said, no, I can't go as far as supporting your boy, but I can't vote for Hillary Clinton either.
Oh, they stayed home.
So they stayed home.
home.
Either way, that's a win.
That is, yeah.
But if we don't have the courage to stand up and say those things in an environment where we know initially we're going to be ridiculed, made fun of, then we will never be able to change those hearts and minds. Now, if I could have sat there and said nothing, and that would be on my conscience, when I stood before God and he said, you had the opportunity to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Why didn't you?
Right.
What I'm supposed to tell God, well, I didn't because I was scared.
Yeah.
They're not going to like me.
Yeah, that you remind me of an ancient Chinese proverb: "Don't try, do." Yeah. And a lot of people, they think they're trying, but they don't do. Here in Santa Barbara, my barber, I just got my haircut the other day. Don't I look beautiful? I mean, really. My barber, he refuses to talk politics with me. And he knows that I'm politically very active. I have a TV show, I have a radio show. He knows that I'm very politically. And he refuses to discuss politics at all. Because we live in the paradise where there's only one party here in Santa Barbara. It's the party of nice. Okay? Mm-hmm. We want to be nice people. And we don't want to upset anybody. We don't want to offend anybody because, we won't get a Christmas card from the Democrat mayor, or we won't get invited to a cocktail party at the university with the Democrat member of Congress. And it's such an inbred system that a lot of people will not even volunteer to run for really down you talk about a down ballot race. How about trustee of a city college? We have 3 trustees that are up for re-election here in Santa Barbara. And it's impossible to find people who will run in opposition to the cultural Marxists who have seized control of that college and who are indoctrinating our students into the most vile, mindless collectivity of communism. You think that the 50s were bad? You think that, you think of the 40s and the 50s? It's a very difficult thing to get people to run for down ballot issues, like the trustees of a city college. So,
especially at a city college, you understand going in that you are going to be one of one. You are going to be the only one. If you go to most public universities right now across the country, and you look at their political science, their sociology, their psychology, any of those type of departments, you are going to find 100% Marxists.
Yep.
You are not. If you find a conservative, he or she probably is like 80 years old and they can't get rid of him because the tenure is so established, it's set in concrete, and they're just waiting for this person to die so they can replace him with another Marxist. But, it takes a lot to understand that when you get up and go to work every day, every day is going to be a war. Mm-hmm. And you are going to lose 99% of those wars until other people join you on the battlefield.
Well, for that reason...
That's tough.
For that reason, I have started a declaration of war against cultural Marxism in schools and in the media. And the petition is online at change.org. And we've got like 250 people have signed up in the space of only a week. People are waking up. You are having an effect in your neighborhood, in your city, because you don't take no for an answer. You don't sit down and shut up. You stand up and you talk. You stand up and you say things.
You have to.
And that's the difference. And you're effective because you do that. If you're worried about losing your job, they got rid of me at Santa Barbara City College. They first of all, they fired me. And then I got a lawyer. And then they said, I guess you were right. We did suppress your academic freedom and your So we'll say that you retired and we'll give you a lot of money to shut up and go away. The good thing is I did not have to sign a confidentiality agreement, so I did go away, but I'm not shutting up.
Absolutely.
I'm not shutting up.
And that's another thing people need to realize. All conservatives have to do to win an argument show up and open our mouths. Because when we open our mouths, we have facts. The guys on the left of Marxists, they run on emotion.
Yeah, well, also we have something that they don't have, and that's called principles and values that are traditional, and they're absolute. They're not relative. Our opponents get away with indoctrinating because relativism is quite easy, and cultural Marxism. The theory of knowledge for cultural Marxism is that there is no truth, there is no reality, there is no goodness, and there is no beauty. All that's invented by cruel white guys to suppress people. So that's all thrown out the window. But what we have is progress. That's what we call ourselves, progressive. And everything is relative. So if you think abortion is okay, then it's okay. If you think transgenderism actually exists, then it must exist. And if you think that a judge who was accused of rape without any evidence should be thrown off the bench, then yeah. So we live in an era. We live in an era where even mere accusations, just accusations, are enough to overthrow a person of standing. Are you familiar with the case at Harvard Law School? The lawyer who was defending Harvey Weinstein and his wife. I believe their last name is Smith, and they have been taken out of their deanship. They were law school faculty and law school deans, both of them, for decades. And just because the gentleman, the husband, just because the husband is on the Harvey Weinstein Defense Council, who's Harvey's accused of multiple rapes. And there seems to be a lot of evidence. But in this country, you're not guilty until you're proven guilty. And you have the right to a legal defense, and you have the right to the best legal defense that you can procure for yourself. Well, Harvard Law School has lost its mind. It has said, no, Harvey Weinstein doesn't have a right to representation beyond a public defender because he's evil.
Right. But I thought on their side they didn't make those kind of moral judgments. But and this is the internal and this is where they fall down because their logic isn't consistent across the board.
Yeah.
They talk all this stuff that if a woman wants to kill her baby, that's her right. She should be able to do it.
Right.
If a man thinks he's a woman, he should be able to go into a lady's bathroom.
Right.
All these people should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I say that if you want to own black people as slaves, that's your right too. That's the exact same logic progression.
Beautiful.
It's the exact same logic.
Yeah.
But they're going to go, no, that's different. No, it's not different. Yeah. It's exactly the same logic.
Yeah. So you're right. All we have to do is show up and open our mouth, because all we have to do is say, oh, so you say that all morality is relative, including your own? Including your morality? That's relative too? They say, oh, no. We're on the side of history. We're on the side of truth. But I thought you said it was all relative. And they keep contradicting themselves. And some of them don't even see that they're contradicting themselves.
And when you point out the contradictions, they get angry.
Oh, yeah. Then they're offended.
And then it turns into an ad hominem attack on you.
Right. Then they get offended, and they run to the Title IX officer at your school, and they say, oh, Mark offended me, or Ralph offended me. We're going to bring him up on charges. We're going to get rid of him because he has a view that offends me. We live in an era of relativism and weak-willed people who don't know the law, don't know civics, don't know the Constitution, don't know the Bill of Rights, and they think that all morality is relative.
And the saddest part about all that is some of those people we elect to the Senate.
yeah, time and time.
Like Kamala Harris, I'll name her.
Yeah,
she's probably the dumbest U.S. senator right now,
who?
Probably a close second is Cory Booker.
Oh, who's the first? I didn't catch the name. Who's
Kamala Harris?
Oh, Kamala Harris, yes, our great California senator who replaced Barbara Boxer. Yes, indeed, yeah.
She is flipping the Constitution on its head every time she opens her mouth.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's also flipped.
What law school did she go to?
She also flip-flopped.
They need to take it back.
She should sue them.
No, they should sue her.
They should sue each other. Right. But she should ask for her money back. But the reason why this is so important, and the reason why I think you and I both get excited about it, is we're losing Western civilization. When we have a legal system, what Harvard Law School says that somebody accused of a horrible crime does not have the right to the best defense lawyer they can buy? It's over. Just shut it down, sell the property, distribute the proceeds to the taxpayers. It's gone.
Right, but they will still invite Hillary Clinton to come to give the commencement address at all of these schools when she represented a man who raped a 12-year-old girl. She has admitted post that she knows the guy did it. She didn't care. He was entitled to representation, and she did what she was supposed to do as a lawyer, but she still can go to Harvard and give the commencement address. And see, that's why the left, these Marxists, are all intellectually inconsistent.
And not only are they inconsistent, they're self-contradictory. They actually, as you just pointed out, Hillary Clinton, early in her career, defended that rapist, knowing he was a rapist. And by the way, she had every right to do that, but so does the guy representing Harvey Weinstein.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's the point. That's what we have lawyers for. That's what we have them for. All right. We're running out of some time here. They're going to give me a little signal from the booth here when we have a minute. We have, 15 minutes? Really? Wow. Great. We get into some other things. Okay. So, Ralph, what do you think right now is the biggest threat to the human freedoms that are protected in our Bill of Rights, especially? What's the biggest threat right now that we have to face?
Well, it's a combination of things. One is the fact that the American populace is completely undereducated as to what their rights are and the origin of those rights. And then hand in hand with the populace being completely unaware of what those rights are is the government actively undermining those rights. So you create a stupid population on one hand, And then you get the politicians to come in on the other hand, and you can do whatever you want to the people because they don't know any better. So it's really a combination. And I said, and it's a loaded question because, you can throw into the mix. We have a United Nations that's completely out of control, that's operating in complete violation of its own charter.
Yep.
We have people inside of every community, inside the black community, inside the Jewish community, inside the white community, that are selling out their own communities. So it's hard to say what one thing is. We have so many things coming at us all at the same time. But if I had to put one at the top, I would say people need to understand that their rights come from God. They need to understand what those rights are. They need to understand the true foundations of this country. What I tell people all the time is, America has always been great. There has never been a time in American history where America was not great. However, America has never been perfect.
No, it never will be.
And it never will be.
Never will be.
And so simply because, some of the founding fathers owned slaves doesn't undermine the greatness of the Declaration of Independence or the United States Constitution. It just shows you that flawed people can do great things.
Yeah. Well, our students are being taught by the cultural Marxists. They're being fed a line about Marxist utopia. They really believe that America can become perfect. If and only if it's a Marxist state. Now, they're using the word socialism, which they didn't invent and does not descend from communism, by the way, does not even descend from Marxism. Socialism developed after the French Revolution, technically. But they're selling our children this nonsense that if everybody is equal, and they don't define what equal entails, but if we have the same outcomes for everyone, so if I get a PhD in philosophy, then Ralph, you deserve a PhD in philosophy, and everybody else in the room deserves a PhD. If I win the Masters Golf Tournament, then you should win the Masters Golf Tournament. If I own a Lexus, then you should own a Lexus. If I live in a 7-story mansion, you should live. It's just nuts that they think that there can be a society where everybody has the same outcome. All wealthy, all happy, all gorgeous. And these students believe this nonsense, this garbage. And
a huge part of this problem was caused by my generation.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, my generation
because
too.
We raised these kids in environments where everybody got a participation trophy. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody gets a prize. So when you take a child from 3 years old all the way through his or her educational system, all the way through college, and every time they even blow their nose, you gave them a blue or gold star, they grow up expecting affirmation for everything and being rewarded for everything. So when they become adults, they still expect participation trophies. And so that's why you have people now who are looking at the socialist system, because in their mind, socialism is a continuation of living in mommy and daddy's house, where it doesn't matter if I ran the 100 meters in 27 minutes and the person who won it did it in 15 seconds, we're going to get the same prize. My generation.
Well, I got to chime in here because I'm a little bit older than you are, so I'm really in an older generation than you are, and I got to admit that our generation, we took our eye off the ball. We thought everything was fine. The post-World War II generation, I was born in 1944, all right? So I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, all right? And I was educated in the transition from the 50s to 60s. And the one thing that my parents and their parents, my grandparents, were concerned with is that we had a material life better than they did. They were sick of war. World War I was devastating. World War II was even more devastating. And the death of God theology grew out of that whole psychology. But I can remember grandparents and parents trying to make sure that all of my generation had a better material life. They forgot about the spiritual life. They took their eye off the ball. They didn't run for school board. They didn't run for the down ballot offices. They let the Marxists, the communists, come in and win those seats. They then took over the government universities. They decimated the liberal arts core curriculum. You no longer had to read Plato and Aristotle. You only had to read Foucault and Jean-Paul Sartre, people between the wars. And so you were indoctrinated into, if it feels good, then do it. Mm-hmm. Herbert Marcuse, maybe you ran into him when you did your baccalaureate at Howard University. Marcuse, in my generation, popularized the expression, if it feels good, it's fine. Do it.
Right.
That's weird. So I gotta say to you that even before your generation gave participation trophies, all right, my generation was much more interested in making sure we had material wealth and prosperity. And they took their eye off the spiritual content of morality and politics. It began there.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that here we are, everyone wants to bash on the millennials and the Gen Xers, and we're willing to stand here and say, no, they're not doing this in a vacuum.
No.
They're doing this in essence because we trained them to do this.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. In the last 3 years that I was teaching in Santa Barbara City College, I used to be the token conservative, and we would have debates and lectures and whatnot. And students would come up to me afterwards and say, I've never heard anything like that. I've never heard those ideas before. You mean you believe in an objective reality? You believe that reality is real? It's not virtual? You believe in an objective goodness and truth? And you believe in an objective beauty? I've never heard anything like that. But once you explain to them your idea, they at least think about it. That's all I ask for. Just think about it.
And that's what Urban Red's whole idea is, by getting involved in these urban races. Yep. People need to hear something. And when they hear it, it's going to hit them like a ton of bricks because they've never heard it before. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's going to be shocking to them.
So what can we do to help you? What can we do to help you make urbanred.org a success?
Well, and this is the part of politics that I hate. Because unfortunately, with our system, if you don't have the green, the machine doesn't run. And for better or for worse.
Yeah, that's the old green machine. The old green machine.
Right. We have a website, urbanred.org. That's the website for the C4.
Right. Okay.
And the reason why we are sort of pushing the C4 is because in this political environment, people who give money to conservative organizations find themselves being doxxed and outed, and people trying to get them fired from their jobs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Well, the C4 gives donors to Urban Red the protection of anonymity.
Yeah, that's big. That's big. That's very, very big. Because people, if you give to a 501c3, that's public. That anybody can look that up. And you can lose your job for donating to Donald Trump or donating to anybody. So that's great. So that's why you're doing a C4, right?
Right. That's why, out of the three organizations, the C4 is the one that's really active, because we understand people need to be protected.
Right, they do.
Because we all know people I know a woman who got fired from 2 jobs for wearing a MAGA dress. She was a federal contractor. She got fired from 2 jobs.
Wow.
So we created the C4 simply so that people could support Urban Red, but at the same time, continue to provide for their families and pay their mortgages and buy their groceries. Anyone who's interested can simply go to urbanred.org. There's a tab there for you to donate. Please go to the Connect or Contact tab. Plug in your email information. We send out blast emails to people who support the cause. We right now have 6 or 7 candidates that we've endorsed. Major Williams, who's running in Pasadena for mayor. Carol Swain, who's running for mayor in Nashville.
Wow.
Shannon Wright, who's running for mayor in Baltimore.
Wow.
We have 2 school board candidates in Fairfax County.
Wow.
A woman who's running for the recorder of deeds in DuPage County in Illinois, and we are.
You're all over the place. You're all over the place. You're all over the country.
Well, and that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can't. Just imagine, just for the sake of argument, that our candidate wins in Baltimore and Pasadena, California. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine the shockwave that's going to send across the country?
Hallelujah!
Exactly. So that's why, and also, Urban Red is not a black organization.
Right.
All the candidates that we support are not going to be black.
Mm-hmm.
They all may not be. Well, I know one of them isn't a Christian,
mm-hmm.
but if you agree with us on the big issues,
mm-hmm.
The old Ronald Reagan standard, if we can walk hand in hand 80% of the time,
right,
and the 20% of the time isn't a deal breaker,
that's it.
We can work together.
That's it. And how successful he was following that very simple formula. If somebody can agree with me 80% of the time, we can sit down and we can get things done together.
Yep, that's it. And so, literally, we send out a vetting form to any candidate who reaches out to us.
Now, what about?
We want to find out where you stand.
Is there a tab on your website? Are you set up already to start educating these potential candidates and potential organizers? Because yourself. I mean, you just went through it. It's not just educating the candidate; it's educating the candidate workers, the staff people.
Well, what we have done is we have not an official agreement, but sort of an understanding that when we run across candidates and there's the campaign staff who need training, we are going to funnel them through the Leadership Institute. I
was just about to say that. Right. Alex Madagian was talking about that. He's actually set up some. We have the Leadership Institute actually is running a program, I think, in Orange County this month. To get Republicans and especially conservatives educated on the electoral process. A lot of them don't even know that there's an open primary system here, where the top 2 candidates, regardless of party, are going to win. Top 2 candidates, they don't even know that.
And I'm a big proponent of not reinventing the wheel. If there's somebody out there that's doing it and doing it well, I don't need to go into competition with that person. I need to get into partnership with that person.
That's right.
And let them do what they do best and let me do what I do best.
Yeah. Also, working through the courts. In my own experience, I got a lawyer and I threatened to sue City College for violating my First Amendment rights and my academic freedom. And I had a good lawyer. Within 2 months, he settled my case out of court. We never stepped foot in a court. We never even filed a case. Well,
they knew they were wrong.
They knew they were wrong. And they also knew that I wouldn't shut up. That's the other important thing. They knew that I wouldn't shut up, as I'm sitting here now not shutting up, 8 minutes? No, half a minute. 2 minutes. Cut it now. Okay. Ralph, it's been great having you on the show. I got to run. I got to pull the plug. We'll talk later, okay? Thank you so much, Reverend Ralph.
Absolutely. Anytime. God bless you.
God love you. Bye-bye.